Hello and welcome to the No Hesitations podcast. We are your co-hosts,
Christin Marvin with Solutions by Christin,
and Nick Spinelli. That's me.
We talk about all things leadership, successes, challenges, and every topic in between with the goal of helping you become a better leader.
So join the conversation each week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you find your podcasts, because there's no time like the present to listen in and level up. Christin, who is our guest today?
We are honored today to welcome John Hinman, owner of Hinman Pies and founder of CHOW. John describes himself as pretty fly for a pie guy and says his pies are the kind of pie you'd drive your Chevy to the levee for, even if the levee was dry. So I have a feeling we're going to talk about some music here. I know before we hit record here, we were just talking about your 50th birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
And yeah, and you got to see some great music to celebrate that, sounds like.
Yeah, I'm all my bands of my DNA are showing up in October. So unfortunately, Springsteen canceled Syracuse, so I couldn't go to that, but I've been to U2 in Vegas. I'm going to Peter Gabriel. I'm going to the Eagles. I'm going back to U2, and I'm ending it all off with Guns N' Roses.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
John, if you had to put yourself on a continuum, your singing versus the singing of some of these bands, how much could you sing like the guys in the Eagles? Because they got some pipes for sure.
Yeah, and they've got Vince Gill now too. In the shower, I give myself like a 12 over those guys. But
wow,
in reality, 2. In the car, maybe an 8.
Okay, all right.
I love it.
So I'm hearing
incredible.
context is everything.
I think so.
Exactly. Well, we're so honored to have you on today and talk about some really important things that are happening right now. Jen and I had the pleasure of meeting last month. I get to come back to Denver and had learned about CHOW a few months ago when I moved down to Arizona, and I was searching for a board to be involved in, a way to stay connected with the restaurant industry, something that I could really sink my teeth into, and something that was different, and came across CHOW, and I was just in awe, being in recovery myself and seeing all the resources around mental health and wellness that CHOW offered. My jaw just dropped, and I said, where has this been for the last, 50, 100 years in the restaurant business? It's so necessary. It's so needed. And, we're seeing real life examples of that come up every day. And we're going to talk about that in just a second, but the organization is making an incredible impact in the lives of those people that work on with CHOW, our expos, those of us that are on the board, and making an incredible impact in the lives of those in the hospitality industry, which is who CHOW serves. That's their audience. And when I was in Denver, John, we had this beautiful orientation. There were about 30 of us sitting outside in our executive director's backyard, Aaron Boyle, and we got up and talked about why we were a part of the organization. And John went last and just got up and told a story that he's going to tell to us here in just a second. And I wish that we could duplicate for the listeners today the emotion and the rawness and the realness that every single person felt in that moment. It was beautiful. There are no words to describe it. So John, love that you're here today, and would love to hand it over to you to talk about where CHOW came from.
All right. Thank you very much. And I'm getting emotional just thinking about being back in Aaron's backyard, because I started CHOW several years ago, and as of today, I'm just known as the founder. I don't have much to do with it. I go to meetings here and there, but I've since stepped away because I have Hinman Pie to run. And what I really wanted out of CHOW was a group of people to talk to. I didn't expect it to turn into this great organization with all these people helping out and all these people coming to the table. And so for me, I'm a baker, not a nonprofit organizer person. So I just prefer to be a member of the community today, because that's all I ever wanted to do to start. And you took me right back to that backyard, and I didn't realize maybe the impact of that story. So I tell it often. I think it's the greatest thing I've ever done in my life for, so far to date. And to be able to not be a part of it today makes it all the better in an odd way, if that makes sense, because I am such a big part of it. But as of today, I'm sober 12 years. And, that's not because I wanted to be. That was a choice that, just happened one day. I was getting thrown out of my last house, and I was 37 years old, and my mom was on her way to pick me up to take me to her house. And she didn't know I had been drinking and the way I had been. And the shame got to me, like, I cannot show up at my mom's house 37 years old. And I was just hammered drunk. And so something inside of me called Boulder County, the alcohol intake, and I called and checked myself in. And when my mom got there, I said, "You're not taking me to your house, you're driving me to the alcohol intake in Boulder." And her head spun once, maybe twice. And I walked into that place and blew up 0.47, walking and talking. And it took me 4 days to blow a zero. And then I went to treatment, and something inside of me started saying yes. My brain was like, no, no, no. My heart was like, yes, we gotta do this. And a bunch of people came through the group of Alcoholics Anonymous and shared their stories, and I heard my story and several of their stories, and it made me realize I wasn't alone. And a few years go by, 5 years, and I find myself back in the restaurant industry, making pies for a local restaurant. And there was a spat about $35, but that wasn't what it was about. And I wound up leaving, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And the IRS check showed up, and I was like, I can live on this for a little while. And I somehow managed to get a 11,000 square foot bakery with 28 employees doing bread for 100 restaurants in town, and things got crazy. But while I was selling my bread, I was going into the back doors of all these restaurants I'd never been to before, and I was seeing my old eyes looking back at me, and I could recognize that. And I was driving around, and there was and I'm thinking, we got to do something here. This isn't so hard. Like, all I had to do was, for the first time in my life, maybe just try to be honest about my situation. And hearing somebody else's story that was similar to mine made that a hell of a lot easier to do. And so when I bought the bakery, there was some articles written by some local magazines and stuff. And this one woman, Alex, called me up for 303 magazine, and out of my mouth said, I don't need another attaboy article. I'm just a sober guy trying to make a living, and I have this bakery, and I think we got to, I see a need here in the business, in our industry, So I'll tell you whatever you want, but I would like to open the doors to the bakery 30 days after this article comes out, and see if anybody wants to come talk about where it hurts. And that's the most important thing about CHOW for me. We talk about where it hurts, not about quitting anything, not about, you don't have to be a sober person to come to CHOW. You can be doing whatever you're doing. You just got to know something's up. Where does it hurt? So we did the article, and 30 days are getting closer and closer, and I have no idea what's going to happen. And I think not 24 hours, but midweek before the next one, I'm thinking to myself, well, John, none of these A-type personality chefs are going to want to come talk about feelings. Who the hell wants to do that? And good job, you tried. And I kind of wrote it off, silly enough. And then within 24 hours later, Anthony Bourdain had taken his life. And that was impactful to me. Because I did read his book, and I read it in one day, like I think most of us in the industry do, and I handed it off to the next person. So lo and behold, that Monday night, there's 40, 45 people showed up at the bakery, and I'm like, oh my God, what are we going to do here? And I just took my cues from two cues from AA. Listen for the similarities and let people talk. And that meeting went on for almost 4 hours. And wow. I just told people to say what they what they do and where they hurt. And there was a lot of questions asked. Several people talked about drinking, overeating, cutting themselves, severe depression. And 3 people talked about suicidal thoughts. And the one woman next to me, she was knitting ferociously. And in Longmont AA, there's like a wall of women that knit, like 5 of them in a row, and they put their knitting down and say something really profound and change your life, and then they just get back to their knitting like it was no big deal. And you're like, boom, and so I'm hyper vigilant on the woman next to me knitting, and her turn comes up and she puts her knitting down and she says, if this meeting sucked tonight, this was my plan to take myself out. And she laid it out in front of everybody in the room. And we all came to her aid and got her number, and she's doing great and is alive and well today. And she was the real catalyst for this. And so I just said, we'll be here next Monday. And CHOW started from that. We had 15, 20 people come in every week for a while, and I'd just pick a topic, or somebody else would pick a topic, and we would just really talk about it. And that's just how it started getting going. And Alex was in the press, so she was writing about it, and we got some momentum, but it was really, really low key. And then word got out about it around town, and some chefs started having benefits for us and raising money, and I was secretly just putting the money in a drawer, because I knew the second that I put that money in the bank, everything was going to change. And where CHOW was at that time was just this beautiful little thing of people coming together and talking. And it still is, but today it's got so much more to offer. But I really cherished that too. I selfishly was like, this is my group and I feel safe here too. And so it was getting to the end of 2019, and I had a bunch of money squirreled away, and I was like, it's time to put that money in the bank. And somebody said we could do a 501c3 in an afternoon and get it set. So spur of the moment, I did it, and then COVID happened. And thank God I think we have 2 voices in us. We have the voice in our head that tells us where we're going, and we have the voice of the heart. And the voice of the heart is the hardest one to hear. But it's always it seems the most impossible, but it's always right. And even on a simple level yesterday, I was in my house and I was hearing, grab the iPad, grab the iPad, grab the iPad. And my brain's going, you're not going there today. You don't need the iPad. 6 hours later, I'm like, should have grabbed the iPad. It's that simple, that voice. That I know I should have voiced. And I try to rely on that today as much as I can. But I fail every day too. But and CHOW has taken off from there. So if you have more questions about what we did over COVID, and Aaron, I'm happy to talk about that history.
Yeah, for sure. I want to chime in with something and just let people know that CHOW stands for Culinary Hospitality Outreach Wellness, and their mission is to support wellness within the hospitality industry and to improve the lives of our community through shared stories, skills, and resources. And one of the things that really attracted me to CHOW was what you just described. They've been able to take the meetings that you held and offer them every day of the week on Zoom or in person all across Colorado. And it's beautiful. There's women's meetings, there's men's meetings, there's, mixed meetings, and it's a beautiful, beautiful resource. That. Yeah. And one of the things that I wanted to mention too, the day that we were in the backyard of Aaron's place and you told that story, we also celebrated that woman that was knitting. It was her birthday that day.
It was her birthday that day. And I texted her in the middle of that meeting and sent her a picture. And I just said, we're talking about you again.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I keep looking over on my counter because I think I have it, but I don't see it. But it's on my. There's no safe, clear space in my house. I pile stuff.
No worries. So we, in the last couple of weeks, we have unfortunately lost a very cherished member of the Denver chef community, Matt Selby. And I know that you and Matt worked together at Vesta back in the day, and you were pretty close. Where does that hurt for you today? And what do you want to say about that?
Maddie, so there was, when Vesta opened, it was great. Everybody was in their 20s. We were kind of flying by the seat of our pants. Josh Walcon was our fearless leader and kept us all in line and had a vision for what he wanted. And it was up to us 20-somethings to execute on that vision. And prior to Vesta, I had worked in a little restaurant called Pasta J's, and it was my first restaurant exposure. I wound up in the kitchen because I got a job there as a server. I dumped 8 iced teas on someone. I found myself in the kitchen that night peeling garlic. And I never, that punishment of going to peel garlic, stayed with me for 30 years. Oh my God. And but it was a huge turning point in my life too. My friend tells me that is a huge, turning point, those iced teas. Anyways, downtown Denver was nothing then. 18th and Blake Street might as well have been on a desert. And we had heard of this new restaurant opening up. So I ran down there and applied, and honestly, with no culinary skills other than opening an oven, putting a pizza in and pulling it out, and making some basic marinara sauce and stuff. So I don't know how, but I talked myself into that job, and Maddie still wasn't the chef yet. And there was another guy named Gabe Stallone. And as days went on, Maddie became the chef, and Maddie had this great culinary brain where he could just pop flavors together really fast. And he was also like an encyclopedia of food. And Gabe, he knew how to make big batches of things. He was like 8 or 10 years older than us and had a little more big batch experience. And they relied on me to learn and do the ordering and the scheduling and that kind of stuff. So that was our trio. So all of us were learning from each other at the same time, different aspects of stuff. And we were super goofy. We'd listen to punk music all day. These were 16-hour shifts, and then do the prep all morning, do the service all night, and then go out and sleep 3 hours and start all over again. That was our rhythm. And Maddie always had this calm about him, though. And he took time to teach me stuff. And this was before the internet, too. And he'd be like, Haji, go make a polenta. And I'd be like, what the hell is a polenta? And then, that required the library or dial-up internet, maybe on AOL, or, finding a book downstairs and looking it up and just start making it until we figured it right. And he'd always say, a little more salt, a little more lemon juice. And whenever you cooked, you'd bring it something to him. And that's what he would always say. And at some point, or every now and then, I wouldn't do it. And I would turn around and make him taste it again. He'd be like, perfect, And I didn't do it to trick him. Yeah, part of it, but it also let me know that I was on the right track, but by doing that. So he was very patient with that. And we just had some really fun, good times. But, outside of teaching me all this good culinary food, he gave me a nickname. And I've really been thinking about that a lot lately. And my nickname was Haji, and a lot of people know me as Haji, especially from that era. And some people didn't even know my real name. And my mom would even say I'm Haji's mom, if she showed up somewhere or something like that. Hi, I'm John Hinman's mom. They're like, who? They're like, Haji's mom. And they're like, come on in,
Oh, yeah, he's sweet, whatever, right.
Love it.
And for some reason, this has really popped for me lately. And me, the John Hinman in me was so insecure at that time. There was outside things going on in my life, like my family being divorced, moving to Denver, I had an alcohol problem that I knew about, but I didn't know how to control. So Haji gave me permission to ride the wave. Haji's the guy that drives the car into the lake. Haji's, but he was also an angel at the same time. You know, he had these dualities, he's the guy that climbs up on top of the neon Benjamin Moore sign, in the middle of the night. I'm so glad there's a YouTube video of anything, But it really allowed me a place to maneuver until Haji's days wore out. And, I refer back to, being 37 years old, and the only promotion I could get in the restaurant industry was mom's couch. And at $13 an hour. Yes, a lot of that is my own making, and because of choices I had made. But at the same time, outside of people in the community to hold each other up, there was no real professional resources. There was no health insurance. There was no way to go see a therapist. Why would I spend $60 an hour on a therapist and when I had rent to pay, and alcohol to drink? And I did go see a therapist once, and he goes, "John, do you believe in anything?" And I said, "Yeah, the word lie in the middle of believe." And I got up and I walked out, and I was just not reachable.
Yeah.
And I think so many of us are like that today. And once I started going to Alcoholics Anonymous, that Haji started to fall away, and I really got to find out who I am. And I have I still can't tell you 100% today, but I have a much better idea, and I'm much more comfortable in my spacesuit today than I was several years ago, and that's all because I talk about it all the time. I'm active in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm somewhat active in CHOW. I talk to my friends. If I see somebody else hurting, I try to recognize that. It's scary to do that when you see somebody on the brink, but just walk up and put your hand on your shoulder and say hello, and they're like, "What?" Sometimes. It's really easy. One of my favorite U2 lyrics is, "Are you tough enough to be kind?" And, it's really true today. It seems like we're tough enough to take, we're tough enough to get what we want, but are we tough enough to be, kind and really take a minute and ask somebody how they were doing?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where CHOW comes from too. And I think for me on a personal level, Maddie was such a influence in this city because we had the group of chefs that came before us, and a lot of times we'd hop on the phone because there was no internet and be like, "How do you make a beurre blanc?" And they would tell us on the phone, and we call back and we'd be like, "It broke," and they'd be like, "Did you da-da-da-da-da-da? Oh, let me go try that." Click, and so Maddie was the leader, one of the leaders of the next generations of Denver chefs in the late 90s and 2000s, and we were making everything, stupid things we shouldn't be making, but we were still making them anyways because we had to know. It was a big time in American culinary scene too, of this explosion. And when we go to Vesta reunions, Josh still has them, there's like classes, and they're all related to Maddie. There's a first class of us 5 years, and then there's like after 5 years to 10 years, and then there's like the 10-year to 15-year class, and it's really cool that we, and some of my best friends, live around the corner from Vesta, from me today, and I'm like a bad mentor to their kids. It's amazing that I have this big family out of that. So I feel like I'm wandering around, so put me back on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good. There's so many things we can talk about. I'm just, what's piquing my curiosity right now is what lessons is Matt teaching us in this moment? Like, if he was going to tell us to add more lemon juice and salt to our lives right now, where's that?
I think Maddie would like to hear himself say, "Be courageous." He was courageous, in so many aspects. A little more salt, a little more lemon juice. I hadn't talked to him in so many years. At the end, we had set several coffee dates, and they were canceled for one reason or another. And so I can't really speak to where he was exactly, but he yeah, I think he would say be courageous and keep trying, and and just be loving, because that's what he was. He was a big lover, Maddie.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you for sharing all that. That's beautiful. Love to talk a little bit about your recovery and how your recovery has helped you be courageous as a local business owner.
How has it been? I'm not supposed to be 50. That wasn't in the plan. And I never had like suicidal thoughts or anything. It just wasn't in the plan, to get to 50. And what does that look like? My sobriety has been filled with a lot of great friendships, a lot of people I can trust. My sobriety, to me today, if I were to add a little more salt and lemon juice to my life today, what would I do? I give myself a little more of a break. I would try to stop impressing everybody as much, because that leads to some fears. Like within my own business, I have fears of talking to my investors and stuff like that, because I don't think I know enough, when they just want the information. That's all they want.
Right.
I want an A on my report card. I'm a C student, and here I am looking for an A. It was a miracle in high school, freaking miracle. And so lighten up on myself, be a little bit more attentive and caring when I can. And as a business owner, man, I've done everything backwards. First, I have a successful pie business, but I've done it all backwards, and I'm trying to rebuild it again, same as my life. And being sober today, life hasn't gotten easier. I've made some of the biggest mistakes I've made in my entire life sober in the last 12 years. And if 12 years sounds like a long time for anybody listening to this new in sobriety, and you're only 12 days, I know that 12 days seems like a lifetime, and 12 years is totally possible. And 50 years is possible. My sponsor is about to celebrate 50 years. That's as long as I've been alive, but life still happens, so, jumping into an 11,000 square foot bakery head first from a 3x5 table, not understanding anything, but I learned that I was good at sales, terrible at managing people, and I don't like to look at numbers, and that still kind of drags along with me. And then CHOW happened, so I was splitting my time, so I was hiding behind CHOW not to look at my business sometimes, and stuff like that. So, and then COVID, which was crazy, because one day the health department's like, we're standing on a toe, holding our finger up to the left and wearing a one eye patch. To the next day, we're wearing masks, we're doing this and cover everything. It was like, what are we doing? And then and standing up for CHOW during that time. So I got a little distracted, and now I'm getting back on the ball. I'm getting a team assembled around me that can help me in where I'm weak. And really, because I have another idea in my mind along the lines of CHOW that I'm not ready to talk about yet, but I'm really, not being a part of CHOW all the time has really left a hole in my soul a little bit. And this giving back to the community is a really important thing to me. So I'm working on something new, and I'm going to do it right this time. Not that CHOW came out wrong, but like anything, I'm planning a new product and making a plan and doing it like people do. So my business has been run pretty much like getting sober. It's embarrassing to say, but I have a lot of faith currency, and that goes a long way. I get help always shows up exactly right on time when I need it, when I think I can't figure this out and maybe I should get a job. I have that thought every now and then, and I'm like, well, then you're gonna have to be somewhere at 9 o'clock, and to hell with that idea.
Totally. Yeah. Well, I love when you just, made that correlation of you're learning how to rebuild your life, and you're directly applying that to your business, because you're always going to be rebuilding and always want to be innovative and changing things. And you had made a comment in Denver about you'd worked in the restaurant business for all these years, and then you opened your business and you were like, what's a general ledger?
Yeah.
What's an invoice? What do I do with all this stuff? And it's so true. And it's so common of so many of us that have worked in the industry for a while. So.
Yeah. I wish there was a better crash course on, and there are out there. It turns out I've been working with a couple of nonprofits that I did find through CHOW that have been coaching me in my business. And one is the Colorado Restaurant Works. And if you're living here, it's a great group. They meet once a month, and it's all producers, and they all share how they got into Whole Foods or how they got here. They're super supportive. And I'm really digging going to those meetings when in the past I wouldn't think that was my jam.
That's great. That's great. Nick, feel free to jump in here if you've got questions, but.
You've been rolling, and I
Okay.
honestly haven't wanted to disrupt the flow. John, you said you were wandering. I think there was a very coherent thread to all the things that you were saying, because I think even just this podcast is a microcosm, I think, of your whole career from the sound of it. Maybe you don't always know where you're going in the moment, but somehow you always wind up right where you're supposed to be.
I do, even if I didn't like the path that I got there. I don't think you can make a wrong decision. And, there's a path for each one of us. And I think that, that head voice and that heart voice, if I just follow that heart voice, life would be a lot easier. It seems a lot riskier a lot of times, but after I've hit my head with my head ideas 52 times on the wall, and then I finally listen to that heart one, you're like, this is going to be impossible. But then
I was just about to say, well, go ahead, finish that thought.
Yeah. And then it turns out 10 times better than you can think. I'm starting to freak out yesterday about pie sales for Thanksgiving. I do this every year. Last year we did like 5,000 pies. And I'm like, there's not going to be enough pies. And yesterday, another bakery called me and says, hey, how would you like to pick up 3,000 pies for us? And I'm like, that just happens,
Mm-hmm.
because I let it go for a second,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I gave it space.
Well, thankfully, people like to eat that time of year, so you do have that going for you. I just wanted to ask, when you were talking earlier about that heart voice, that really acute moment in time that you described, when you were 37, when it sounds like you were houseless for a moment and mom was involved and you checked yourself into recovery. Was that the first time that you think you heard the heart voice? Or was there another time even earlier than that that you got in touch and you said, hey, what's that? I'm going to listen to that.
This is kind of funny, but I hope my mom doesn't listen to this. But so this is my second round of sobriety. First time I was sober for 5 or 6 years. And in 2000, I was trying to get rid of, my brother and I were living together. I'm going to tell this story. Holy shit. Okay. And, he was kind of a nuisance to me at the time. And he is not a nuisance, let me say, but I didn't want to live with him anymore. So I concocted this scheme that Dan had this big alcohol problem and people have to come out and, we have to do an intervention on him. I had the rehab all set up. I mean, I had it. And I went out one night and came home and I woke up and I saw all the papers scrambled. And so I called the rehab and I'm like, hey, did a Dan Hinman check in? And they're like, no, but a John Hinman checked in last night. And I checked myself into treatment in a blackout.
Wow.
Wow.
So that was a non-choice, that kind of goes along with that yes thing. And at that time, it was like a yes, no. And the biggest difference for me today, I went to the same treatment center 10 years later. They gave me the same bed, which are the chances I had to carry the same stupid surrender flag for a week. I had the same chores. I got out of there. I had the same Honda Civic. I bought my business at the same time. I used to have a gelato business back then. The biggest difference was 3 years into my sobriety, 2.5, the first time I stopped going to AA meetings. And today I'm still very active in that because, life happens. Just because I'm sober doesn't mean life's going to be perfect. Still John Hinman involved in this whole sobriety thing. The guy that all his bright ideas wind him up 37 years old on his mom's couch. And I have to be aware of that. I have alcoholism, not alcoholism, they say, it's something I have to contend with the rest of my life. And that doesn't mean taking a drink today. You know, the drinking was a symptom of what I have. Because I'm always putting myself down in my head. I have one side of my brain that makes shit up, the other side believes it, and my mouth spews it, you know, and breaking that filter is where that heart voice really comes in, because I have this manufacturer on the top of my brain that's never going to stop, that has a bad name called alcoholism, that scares people. But, you know, I just have a mental health issue, and alcohol seems to tame that, you know, better than Xanax, or I don't know. I've never had any prescription drugs, but so I can't talk to that, but that's what works for me, you know, alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And once I put it in my body demands more. It's an opposite. Where some people say I'm going to stop, my body, you know, the third drink is having the fourth drink, and John Hinman's not even involved anymore, you know, until that game runs out. So putting that blockade of the heart in front of my brain, it sounds very spiritual or ethereal, or I don't know the right word, but it works, you know, it really does.
Yeah. When you made a point of something that I want to circle back on for a second. You mentioned it's not necessarily about the alcohol. It's about finding out what the deeper issue is and really tapping into that. And when I started talking to therapists, when I was quitting drinking, she said the exact same thing. She's like, it's not alcohol. You can go to pot, you can go to cocaine, you can go to ice cream, you can go to, you know, whatever it is, until you really deal with what's going on and why you're choosing to self-medicate like that, you're never going to overcome this. And that was a huge moment for me, because I had made alcohol out to be the enemy, and I hated it. And I was so angry at it. And I just thought, you're the reason why. Right. I wasn't ready to take full responsibility for that yet. And that's been really eye-opening over the last couple of years. So.
Yeah, I have a huge album collection over there. It's not the album collection's fault. It's another.
No, those albums didn't steal all of your disposable income.
No, they didn't at all.
They found their way there somehow.
So like that just goes to show how many records, how many pies, how many RC cars I build, how many of these things I go down the rabbit hole of alcoholism with, you know, I'm still empty, you know, until I talk to you. And that's where the gas comes from.
Yeah, I love that. How are you approaching your future, your business, you know, as we kind of start to wrap up here? Is it, you know, a lot of people in recovery talk about day by day. Is it day by day? Are you able to plan for the future? Are you looking at the next 50 years and what that looks like? I mean, how's your approach?
We are starting to look into the future, because it's been such a, I can't wait till Thanksgiving's over, because kind of like take a couple of weeks off, and then, you know, I'm really looking, last couple of years I just kind of floated, but I'm really looking at diving into the business and seeing where we're going to go in 2024. And I'm willing, like something in me now is starting to say yes to the numbers, where in the past they were like, I'll never understand those, I'm not good enough to understand those, da 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 da. Something in me is starting to flip, to start saying yes to those things. And you know, I'm really excited to work with my team. We've got a cool new product called Paillettes coming out, and mini hand pies.
They are delicious. I brought some home on the plane. Yeah.
Squishing your head, but they're like this big, and it's like a 2-bite finger delight. So I'm working really hard to get those into grocery stores in a bag. And I want to put 13 in there. So, you know, it's a baker's dozen. And also that 13th one is for whoever's, you know, baking them, you know. I want to create a story around those and have another plan behind those too. So
if you could tie in a song to those paillettes, what would it be?
It's pretty, a real song to the Paillettes. It would probably be a John Prine song. I don't know which one exactly, but maybe. I don't know. That's a good question.
I feel like that could be your marketing strategy where each one of your products is paired with a piece of music, very similar to the way that you would see like this wine goes very well with this cheese or whatever, right? You would be like best served with, to go back to the Eagles earlier, right? Best served with the Eagles and their 1979 release, whatever, right?
Yeah,
I
sunrise,
think
yeah.
that could be it.
Yeah, I loved looking at your website this morning and just seeing and then online too. I saw like the Chevy and the Levy tagline on Google, and I was like, this is so fun and playful. I had no idea. So that was a nice welcome surprise. But
It's funny you asked me that question because I've been playing with the AI, and obviously you guys are, and I didn't know what to do with it like 2 months ago. So I just started writing like, write me a song about paillettes. And then I would say, no, like Metallica, no, like this. And I would just write these. And that's
No,
about,
heavier.
yeah.
so fun. Yeah.
So I took a mini AI class lately, and it's like, whoa, I can jam that email. And that's part of like the inspiration to understand the numbers, because this thing will spit it back like I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I tell it some parameters about me and I get a email that I don't understand, I'll spit it, copy it, and I'll say, explain this to me, and it breaks it all down. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
click.
I love that.
Organize meetings. Hey, I want to have a meeting about X, Y, and Z, half an hour, punch it in, and it gives me an agenda. Like, these are big blockades for me in my life. My mom was an English teacher, and if I sit down to write an email or an agenda, I think it's got to be like perfect, and I'll spend 45 minutes on the first 2 sentences.
Yeah, the time and energy and the space that it gives you to spend the time and energy where you want is absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
that's great.
Well,
I'm like having this visual of you sitting down typing into AI, like, I need a song about paillettes. No, more cherry, less apple,
And the paillettes are going to be fun. We're coming up with little characters for each one, like, and I can't remember all the names right now, but
that's awesome.
I want Apple to be like, Stevie Wondery, and he's super slick and he's all gold, and cherry to be whatever. But we're having fun. I want to make a whole paillette universe.
I love that. That's amazing. Putting together your little band. So tell listeners where you're located and how they can buy pies from you.
Okay, right now for the to order pies, you can go to hinmanpie.com. Unfortunately, I'm not shipping nationally yet, so that's a local thing. Hinman Pies will be picked up on Thanksgiving at Lever's Local Board, which is off of Federal in Denver. Our pies are currently available at Tony's Meats, Lever's Local Board, some of your favorite restaurants, to purchase frozen take and bake. We also do the Longmont and Boulder Farmers Markets until Thanksgiving. But yeah, order up right now, and I will, by the time you post this, I will give 10% off to any listener, and we'll come up with a code to put on here. No hesitation for something like that. And I'd be happy to offer that to anybody who sat through all this. If you made it to the end, you'll know the code.
Love it. That's awesome. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
For sure. Just want to mention too, for anyone that is interested in learning more about CHOW or attending a meeting, you can go to chowco.org for more information on any mental health resources or substance abuse resources that you need. There are a ton of free resources available. It's incredible the amount of support that CHOW is offering. And there's a really cool donation page where you can make a donation in honor of someone that you've lost and loved. So,
and look up those resources even if you're not struggling, because you know what, someone that does.
Totally.
And you don't know the right time. I think everybody has a little codex in them, and I think it has to do with our stories. And sometimes we're not willing to jump out of our skin until we hear somebody else go through what we do and they say it just right, and then something unlocks in you, and you're like, and the yes button turns on.
Yeah, it's a great point. There's a lot of leaders out there too that need resources and want help understanding how to have these conversations with their employees, and that's a great resource as well. Awesome. Well, John, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here. Appreciate you sharing your story. Can't wait to try more pies when I'm back in town here in the next couple of months. So look forward to reconnecting for sure. And we're cheering you on. Congratulations on 12 years.
I'll put a code in the website called no reservations.
Okay.
Or no hesitations, I'm sorry.
Yep. It's an ode to Anthony Bourdain. So that's a common confusion, we hope. Awesome. Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes for you guys too. So
Okie dokie.
Perfect. All right, John. Well, subscribe and listen each week on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to follow Christin Marvin and Nick Spinelli on LinkedIn, and subscribe to the Solutions by Christin newsletter. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.